A lot more people than actually expected are always asking me to review budget gaming headset, and since there's nothing wrong with that, that's exactly what I'm going to do today here with the Aoso J9. So how much of a gaming headset experience will you get for just about $30? I'd say let's find out and take a look at the design here first. It definitely looks like a budget gaming headset because not really elegant, definitely not subtle here with the blue LEDs. Also the brown color comes down to personal taste, same as the overall design because it looks a little bit bulky. If that's okay for you, is something only you can decide, not so much for me. What I like though is the build quality after all, because for 30 bucks it feels mostly quite solid, even though it's just plastic. I think there is some metal here beneath this rubber sleeve, which is the headband, which doesn't feel super sturdy, but it also doesn't feel like it would break anytime soon, so it's quite okay. The padding on the headband, definitely not super thick, but since it's very flexible, this actually works better than expected. What I also like is the volume wheel, which is not too loose, so this is okay. And the microphone arm, even though not fully retractable, at least is very flexible, so you can adjust it to your mouth. One thing that I found to be a little bit weird though, when I didn't want to use it, it was kind of always in my peripheral vision. One thing that I have to complain about though is the very thick cable, which looks like a garden hose to me because it's not flexible at all. It's just unnecessary thick and a little bit clunky in my opinion, so I'm not the biggest fan of that. What I like quite a lot though are the ear cups, because even though I'm not a fan of circular ones, I have to say these are big enough, they are thick enough, and they are actually soft enough. And that leads me already to the comfort, because if I put them on, I have to attest them one thing. They are actually more comfortable than I expected, because a little bit more on the heavy side, definitely not super secure as you can see here, because the clamping force isn't all that strong. But you can actually use them for hours and hours and you will just feel a little bit fatigued due to the weight, and especially if it's a little bit warmer, you will feel that due to the leather ear cups. So this is just something you have to keep in mind. The isolation to the outside is actually good, even though with a little bit more clamping force it would be even better, but the leakage outside is also quite moderate, I would say. So comfort actually better than expected, because the headband works now. It definitely doesn't look all that great, and that's why I would already say let's get to the microphone and I will give you a demo right about now. Okay, so this would be a microphone test of the Aoso J9, and as you can already hear, this is surprisingly good, way better than I would have expected, because there is pretty much no background here, so very clean sound. The highs are quite clear, it doesn't sound thin or weak, so actually quite some nice solid amount of body to it, and nothing else to say here. It really works out quite okay. If you want to know about the noise cancellation or how well you can hear the keyboard, here is what an MX Cherry Blue would sound like. And hear the mouse. And let's end this with a few seconds of silence. So that's that when it comes to the microphone. Just real quick to cover the software. In the Windows settings you get some minor options, like you can enable and disable the 7.1 virtual surround sound, and you have some bass boost, but there's not really anything interesting to say here, and that's why I would already like to go to the sound for gaming. Here I can already tell you one thing. If you are someone who's a competitive gamer who wants all the details and the precision and so on, this is not really it, because it's quite a heavy, thick bass, but very boomy, so not really super detailed or precise. So if you're an action-packed gamer, then it works quite okay, because then it doesn't really matter so much that we don't pretty much have any highs, and the mids are quite recessed as well. So it is quite a muffled experience. The soundstage is also quite narrow, so I didn't really feel immersed. I didn't really like the experience so much. It was okay for games, I have to still say, if you consider the low-end budget segment, but I was just missing the clarity, the highs, the overall location and so on. It wasn't all that impressive. It works okay if you want just a good experience, but especially if it comes down to things like, for example, the sound from music, I'm very disappointed, because the bass is just way too thick and not detailed. It's just boomy, and not the great kind of boomy. And then there are the mids that really don't emphasize on the vocals so much, and the highs are pretty much non-existent. You could, of course, tweak that in the settings, especially if you have an equalizer in your media player, but this is just something I don't want to do, and you would just extremely heavily have to adjust things like turning down the bass and raising the mids and highs. So definitely not great. It works better for games, but in the end, to come down to the verdict here, the microphone is actually quite good, the comfort is quite good, the build quality is, I would say, okay, but it's the sound that leaves quite a lot to be desired. For games on a budget, it might work out if you like a boomy, fat, thick bass and don't really need high so much for precision and location and so on. But for music, I definitely can't say so much about it. And then there is also the downside that this is just USB only. This comes with a USB plug, no 3.5mm or anything else, and then there is this clunky, quite annoying cable. So for $30 it might be okay, but I would definitely recommend you to just pay a little bit more and get something like the HyperX Cloud Stinger, where you will get an overall way better experience. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about the headset. Let me know if you have maybe used it or something else, and otherwise, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and maybe a subscription. Otherwise, until next time, bye.